thank you for your patience. I'm just switching titles. I'm going to throw out a Twitter tweet. One of them tweets. Now we're going to go live. Hooray! So I'm going to do that intro blah. Thank you for your patience while I do so. So let us go. Okay, Hearthstone time. Intro incoming. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy and this is FailCraft Casts. Hope you're well and good. It's New Player Monday, so we're going to be jumping in and doing what we always do, which is a bit of a deck tech garage intro examination, call it what you will. We take a deck that we've been seeing a little bit on the ladder, or that seems to be popular, or that someone on Twitter has suggested. We're going to break it down, we play a few games, see how it goes, and then as a finish off to this New Player Monday, we are also going to be taking a good look at a request from a viewer request who has said, I would like to know how I can, with my rank 10 Mage deck, I've just got in, I'm on the point of giving up, I want to beat the Paladin hero in the intro so I can start playing as new heroes. So we're going to go back to basics, which is great to take a look at. But for now we're going to look at Mage Secrets, and Mage Secrets with Thaddius as a little deck guide and introduction. So we're going to do what we always do, we're going to jump on in, we're going to pick a deck and shred it as we always do, and then enjoy. So for some reason, firstly, I'm wondering why my sound's gone. Can you guys hear game sound? I'm hoping that you can, but if you can't, let me know. So first up, we're going to jump in and build the deck. We're going to see how it goes. Now, this is a deck, and it is, I can only call it sort of a, some people call it mad scientist, some people can call it a nax. One thing's for sure, it thrives off secrets and various different things to do some sort of chronic damage, and then also take the use and abuse a bit of deathrattle. So first up, let's see what we can do. Our goal with this deck, as I Chick Whisperers Legends, we'll actually, I don't know, we'll get rid of the Wisp deck. Zano is not here, so in his absence, his Mage deck is going to go. Interesting. For some reason, I do not have sound on Hearthstone. That's a little bit frustrating. I'll see if I can get that back for you. Okie dokie, so we may just do a little reboot of Hearthstone, so thank you for your patience. And while we chat through what this deck is actually trying to do, our goal is to get out a bunch of secrets, start stealing our opponent's minions, and then use and abuse various death rattles and summonings of minions so that we can grab Thaddius, and we can grab Thaddius by getting Feugen and Stalag both killed off. So for those of you who are not regular Hearthstone players, you may be WoW players. Okay, I'm not quite sure what's going on with my sound. We may have a soundless Hearthstone experience. That'd be a little bit frustrating. Okay, so that I don't delay the stream, we're going to go probably and sadly soundless. So first up, what are we going to do? Jump in and we're going to build the deck. We're going to take a look and then we're going to possibly play some ladder for fun. Right, new deck, let's grab our Mage and let's show you the cards and talk about roughly how they can work. Firstly, we're going to grab, this is Theo, I'm going to say SJOW, his version. We're going to grab all of our cards to start with. So firstly, we're going to get a card that's actually quite common in this kind of deck, and we're going to grab Sylvanas Windrunner herself. So what does Sylvanas do? Sylvanas is great fun with the death rattles. It is going to let you grab a random enemy minion. This grabs tempo for you. So you can throw this down, your opponent has to silence. If they do not silence and kill this, then you're stealing something on the table. When to play Sylvanas? Sometimes you can argue as soon as possible, but generally you want to play Sylvanas when your opponent has minions on the table, rather than if your opponent has, say, an empty table. If your opponent's got an empty table, Sylvanas will not steal anything when she dies. So you want to do that, taking control of a random minion. For extra points or finesse, you can throw it down when your opponent has got big and ugly minions down. It will force them to reconsider and potentially deal with it. Sylvanas helps swing tempo in your favour. Next up, we're going to grab a couple of Ethereal Arcanists. So this is an interesting card. If you control a secret by the end of your turn, gain 2/2. We have a lot of secrets. This is a secrets mage deck. Therefore, the Ethereal Arcanist can almost become a finisher. If we have secrets down, that is going to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you throw it down with a secret down, then your opponent kind of has to deal with it like Sylvanas, or if you drop it at the right time at the end of the game, it will become big and chunky. Your opponent can't remove the secrets, or will have trouble removing the secrets, or will have trouble removing the Arcanist. So a nice little situational finisher. Always seen in this Mage Secret deck. We've done Mage Secrets deck before, 2 Kirin Tor Mage. This is brilliant value because it will let you get a secret into the game for practically free, which is all cool and good. So while you do that, and of course if you go second and you have a coin, that means that you can play this 3 mana card on turn 2. If you have a secret in your hand, you're getting out a 4/3 attacking minion on turn 2 with a secret on the table as well, giving you a really, really strong start to the game. So a couple of those goes in. Next we're going to be grabbing a couple of Loot Hoarder. Loot Hoarder is just a simple deck acceleration card seen in a lot of different decks, and we're going to be throwing this down with the deathrattle. We're going to be drawing cards as well, as buffing up our Undertakers. More on that story later. But throw that down. If it doesn't do any damage, then it's going to be letting us draw cards in the early game, and it will let us buff the Undertaker as well. If it does stay alive, then we can be chipping away for 2 on whatever we fancy. Next up, a common card in Mage decks, the Mana Worm. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 attack. You can drop this for 1 mana in the early game, and as a mage, you're going to be throwing around a lot of spells in the early game, so that will let you buff up to a nice strong early game minion that can help you trade, keep the table under control. 2 mana ones. Next up, just the one. One of the brilliant basics that I talk about so much, the Water Elemental. If you play up to level 10, if you level your mage up to 10 in Hearthstone, you get this card free. And 3 attack, 6 health, it will stick on the table, it freezes, it causes problems, and will really mess up your opponent, particularly good against weapon heroes. If you freeze any minion, of course, or any hero, it removes that hero's next attack. So weapon-based heroes sit there and can do nothing as you hopefully pile a Water Elemental into their face. Lovely stuff. Then we're going to get together some of the techie cards. We're going to grab 1 Feugen and 1 Stalag. Reason for these, this is the combo we're trying to get off. You can see with these 2, World of Warcraft fans will recognise how this mechanic works. If Stalag died, summon Thaddius. If Feugen died, summon Thaddius. We want to get both of these to die so we can summon Thaddius, and then we've got various mechanics that will let us try and multiple summon Feugen or Stalag, meaning that we can try and summon multiple Thaddiuses. And Thaddius, of course, I believe is an 11 attack, 11 health minion who is vicious and nasty. So Feugen and Stalag are our combo that we are trying to trigger. Next up we have a Loteb, as I like to call him. He's a little bit rust at Loteb. A, because I think he's got sort of rustery looking mushrooms of hair, and B, because it's fun to pronounce roughly that way. So Lotheb, you throw down, and enemy spells costing 5 mana more next turn really interrupts your opponent. You can get Lotheb for free from completing a Wing of Naxxramas, and he is really, really strong. Welcome Beefy Pally, by the way, who's joined us. We're going to, after we finish this, and welcome to M1XIIBR. Great to have you with us as well. So Loteb really does slow down your opponent. There's nothing wrong really with playing Loteb turn 5. If you're in doubt, just throw him down turn 5. But if you're against decks that revolve around a big spell combo, or if you think that your opponent's going to be throwing around a lot of spells, then this slows them down for 1 turn. It gives you table advantage sometimes because of the 5 attack and 5 health. He's a solid minion in his own right, and he really lets you get table control, but will also delay your opponent. So he kind of is 2 for the price of 1, double bubble, double trouble, and therefore good at interrupting your opponent's plans as well as helping you secure yours. Next up we have basically, people call this the Mad Scientist deck, and the Mage Secret deck that we've shown you before is really, really nice because Mad Scientist lets you pull out a secret from your deck into the battlefield. 2 mana, 2 attack and 2 health. You will be able to trade some early game minions or do some damage with the Mad Scientist, or even if he dies straight away, if you're not silenced, you get your secrets out. So this thins your deck. It means that you don't have to worry too much about drawing and playing secrets, similar to the Kirin Tor Mage, because whenever you are getting a secret, you're going to try and draw one out with Mad Scientist, or you're going to try and throw it down with a Kirin Tor Mage to play it for free. 2 Mad Scientist, in we go. We've already grabbed Stalag, and then last but not least we're going to finish off with a couple of Undertakers. Now the reason for Undertakers, another Naxxramas minion. Whenever you summon a minion with deathrattle, gain 1/1. So like the Mana Worm, Undertaker you can throw down turn 1. If I've got spells I can start buffing up my Mana Worms, but generally I can be buffing up those Mana Worms in the later game. if I want to. I pretty much throw down in the early game. Now let's have a look at how many death rattles I have. Loot Hoarder, I've got 2 very cheap death rattles, so I can use those to buff an Undertaker in the early game. The Mad Scientist has death rattle. You can also see that feugen and stalag also have death rattle. Sylvanas Sylvanas Windrunner also has death rattle, so Undertaker can just be buffed up and made stronger from so many different sources. And you actually have options with Undertaker. You can throw it out in the early game and buff it up with the early game death rattles if you've got the right hand, and kind of like the Mana Worm here, you can also drop it in the mid to late game, potentially. If you still need to play those death rattles. Undertaker's probably more early game than Mana Worm, but you can buff it up in the late game or mid game perhaps if you have the right hand as well. However, I'd still probably try and drop Undertaker more in the early game. Okay, so we're 16 out of 33. We're going to start fishing into our Mage pool of cards to grab all of the juicy little secrets that we need. So first up, we're going to grab 2 counter spell. So annoying. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, counter it. That is just going to start negating your opponent's advantage, any spell they play, for maximum points. Try and place counter spell when you know a nasty enemy spell is coming. Examples, maybe a Priest Mind Control is a very extreme example, a 10 mana spell that's going to be nasty. For Paladin is going to drop Avenging Wrath or Divine Favour, whether they're going to be doing a lot of damage with Avenging Wrath or Divine Favour to draw cards. If you can read the plays, if you're looking at your opponent's plays, if you know roughly what deck your opponent's playing, then if you've got a counter spell in hand, playing it at the right time is key. However, you have a lot of stuff here that you just want to counter spell on the table as soon as possible. So if a Mad Scientist draws a counter spell, then you're not going to complain. Negating any of your enemy's spells, just having the counter spell in play will slow your opponent down. They're wasting mana, they're wasting spell cards. So 2 counter spells, pretty much a no-brainer and very, very useful regardless of how you use it. Next up, 2 Mirror Entities. Very awkward. When your opponent plays a minion, summon a copy. That gives you minions on the table and will let you pressure the early game a lot more heavily, which is good. Or in the late game, if your opponent is throwing big minions down, then copying them with Mirror Entity, again, equally valid. So again, another secret you can kind of just throw down, and that will give you a lot of good benefits, as you can see, I hope. Flame Strike will grab. This is our late game area of effect clearance. If we need to get our enemy's side of the table clear, if they've got lots of minions that are annoying us, if we can't copy them too well, then Flame Strike is our card. So that's in there as a tech, a 1-drop, and we hopefully don't have to use that, but if we do, it's going to be to clear everything nasty out of the way and leave our field free so that we can push in for a win. 2 Frostbolts, a Cookie Cutter Vanilla Mage card, basic, so good. Deal 3 damage to a character and freeze. And for you beefy pally who are going to be doing your challenge after, several of these Mage cards are basic cards, so lots of stuff very, very relevant to your deck building and what we'll go through when we do our rank 10 Mage challenge in a little bit. So there is a Frostbolt. These we can use to pick off minions, these we can use to freeze enemy heroes, do damage to enemy heroes. Generally speaking, you probably use these to pick off minions, I would say. They're not huge damage to the enemy face, but if there's nothing else and you've got the table under control, Frostbolt is welcome extra damage. 2 Arcane Intellect next up. Again, another basic card at the core of the Mage card drawing engine. You will very rarely see Mage decks, beg pardon, that do not feature a couple of Arcane Intellect. 3 mana, 2 cards drawn. Drawing more cards in a card game, always good. So 2 of those come in. Next up, again, another basic Mage card, 2 Fireballs, a very straightforward nuke, 4 mana, 6 damage. You're going to be wanting to use Frostbolts, are going to be going to your opponent's minions potentially, but Fireballs, again, you can use them to pick off a big minion, but you'd probably rather be using this to hit your opponent in the face. Now, also in this deck, very important to note that if you want to summon, if you're in a position to summon Thaddius, note that you could also kill your own Stalag. Do 6 damage to your Stalag. If you already had Feugen disappear, then you summon Thaddius. So I'd quite happily nuke my own minion for 6 to summon an 11/11 minion. That's a good trade. Don't forget that you can damage your own minions in this deck. That can be very useful indeed. And then last but not least, we're at 27 out of 30. We need 3 more cards. 1 Duplicate jumps into the deck. Duplicate is a new secret that has evolved and arrived with Curse of Naxxramas, and it's nasty. When a friendly minion dies, put 2 copies of it into your hand. Hey, what happens if one of my Feugen dies, or one of my Stalag dies, or my Thaddius dies on my opponent's turn? If I've got Duplicate down, then suddenly I get those minions back in spades and can start playing them and causing havoc. So Duplicate, remember, of course, as with any secret, will only trigger on your opponent's turn. So for that reason, duplicate. You want to be dropping that ideally when you've got some good minions down, where you'll get a good advantage when your opponent kills them off. If I get an Undertaker, it's not as good as if I get a Thaddius or a Feugen or a Stalag or another Sylvanas Windrunner. Duplicating Sylvanas is evil. If Sylvanas dies, I steal an enemy minion, I get 2 Sylvanas back, I can throw Sylvanas back on the table. You can see those combos. And Duplicate, of course, again, available for free if you do some of the Curse of Naxxramas challenges. So, nice little card that you can grab there. Okay, I'm 2 cards down and I've missed adding 2 things. Let's see what we've missed. Did I miss Frostbolt? I think I did. No, I've got Frostbolt. I've got Arcane Intellect. I don't have Arcane Intellect. For some reason those didn't fly. No, I've got Arcane Intellect. I've got Fireball. I've got Duplicate ×1. I've got Counterspell. Flame Strike. I've also got Flame Strike. Did Undertaker make its way in? It did. Stalag, Mad Scientist. I also have Mana Worms, Loot Hoarders. Oh, there we go. I missed something coming up. And this actually is a card that has been in Mage cards and Mage decks for a while, but makes a little comeback in this one. Now, Harvest Golem is just pure evil. And the reason that Harvest Golem is pure evil, you can drop it in and you can see it's a 2-for-1. And also, look, not only does it have Deathrattle, so it is buffing up our Undertakers, but it will let us trade very efficiently because when it dies, another damage golem is summoned. So it's 2 cards for the price of 1, and for that reason, it will throw down some very nasty pressure on our opponent. In the early game, we can just be using it to trade and keep the table under control. So, as a review, what are we trying to do? We're trying to keep the table under control and do some nice damage in the early game with minions, and then transition into getting, hopefully, our Stalag and Feugen combo off to summon Thaddius, and then either use Sylvanas to grab table control and momentum if we need to, but really we're trying to look to finish with Thaddius or similar big minions, and we've got lots of nasty little tricks. We can be stealing our opponent's minions, we can be doing various wrecking with things, so Mage, Thaddius, that's what I'm going to call this deck. Okie dokie. So that is our deck built. As I summon it in the left column, and I apologise for the lack of sound, I think we're going to go into a ladder and play this and see how it goes. Custom Mage. Now I would recommend that if you're playing as a new player, you've just broken through, try it out in casual first. In fact, you know what, let's grab a casual game so we can see how this deck is working for us. I'll grab it and put the deck list up in the right column so you can see exactly what we're playing with, and we'll see how this works. So one of my tactics, I want to be mulliganing for good early game control cards, I think. Let's deathrattle the secrets, I'm loving that. Let the hunt begin, you have asked for it. So we're playing a hunter. If the hunter is trying to rush me, I still want early game control, I want minions. Mana Worm I'm happy with. Counterspell, there's not huge amounts a hunter's going to throw out in the early game that will be handy. I definitely don't want a Fireball. So I'm going to trade back, I'm going to keep my Mana Worm and look for Frostbolts, look for more early game minions. I've just got exactly the same back. What a fail mulligan that was. That was a painful fail mulligan, indeed. Okay, so turn 1, well, I'm just going to throw down my Mana Worm. That's a no-brainer play. Hopefully, if nothing else goes wrong or right, I can throw down Counterspell turn 3 and buff it up. There is a danger that Hunter could try and ping this off with an Arcane Shot if they have one. But remember, I want to be keeping the table under control, and the Hunter has dropped an Undertaker. Very interesting indeed. Down goes a coin, meaning he's got 1 more mana. And we see the Lepidome fly down with the Deathrattle that is buffing up the Undertaker, so our Hunter already has a very strong table presence. Not the greatest position for us to be in. What I can do is I can ping this out the way immediately. I would like to destroy this, but that's not going to be possible until next turn, so I'm going to attack to the face. Take the 2 damage from the Lepidome, of course, by sacrificing it, but I know that I can potentially remove that next turn if I have a spell that I can play. Down goes a Haunted Creeper, another Deathrattle, and we can see that this Undertaker is already 3-4, throwing out nice trades. Now, happily I've got a Flame Strike, so I can put some pressure on there. I think really a Loot Hoarder is going to be my option here. I'm going to offer the trades. He may well trade with the Haunted Creeper. A Fireball will let me remove this Undertaker. So although I didn't really want to be using Fireball on minions if at all possible, we can see that this Hunter has really got a combination of a rush deck, and at least I get the card draw by sacrificing that Loot Hoarder. In comes the chip damage from the nice Juggler, and in comes the chip damage from the Spectral Spider. Good, I've drawn into Mad Scientist, which is useful. So I need to stay alive until Flame Strike. A Counterspell, probably not doing huge amounts. Mirror Entity will help me so far. Mad Scientist will let me pull in a secret, or do I just want to nuke this off the table straight up? I think actually Dealing with this before it gets too nasty is a good plan. However, there's still enough on the table to do a lot of damage to me. So a tough decision. A mad scientist will give me a secret for free, but he probably won't attack it and get the secret. He'll probably just keep charging straight on in. So for that reason, I could remove one minion with that, or I'm going to remove the nasty, big threatening minion. It's much of a muchness, because Knife Juggler, the longer that stays on the table, the more damage it will do as well. So if I can stay alive for a Flame Strike, if I can stay alive till turn 7, then we can start coming back. But you can see already that our hunter has fooled the table. He's got a nasty threatening huffer there as well, and charging him with all of these, it looks as though he may well have just rushed us to death already. So Stalag is only going to be so much use. He does have 5, 9, 10 damage on the table. What can I do? This is not going too good. I think we need one more game to try and illustrate this deck to its fullest, and that is what we shall do. Okay, so Mirror Entity isn't going to help us at this stage. Mad Scientist, I doubt that he will destroy that. Counterspell isn't going to help. Stalag, he's not going to attack, he'll just keep on attacking me to the face. So I need to try and remove some minion threats. I think really I'm going to try and remove Huffer, but he's going to charge me into the face for a good deal of damage. And you can see one of the challenges of this deck. If we don't manage to control the table well in the early game, which we didn't, then rush decks such as this, or you could swap this for a zoo, can cause us a lot of trouble. In fact, that is game. So we shall concede and get ourselves into a new game. So that's not a very unusual, not a usual hunter deck, but you can see the sheer pressure that put us on, and one of the challenges of this deck. Hopefully we can see a better example in the next game that we jump into, and say, look at me rushing into a casual game and saying, oh, it'll be fine, we're going to be able to put loads of pressure on. So we'll do one more in casual, and hopefully we can get this out and performing better. Cool. So we have another hunter. I wonder if it's not the same hunter, but we can see that he's got Naxxramas card backs. And what have we got this time? Okay, well, we've got Arcane Intellect, Harvest Golem, Mirror Entity. We're going second. So I'm going to... What am I going to do? Well, Arcane is nice to keep. Mirror Entity could be handy too. I'm going to keep Loot Hoarder into Golem. I can drop Loatheb, will slow him down. Yep, whether it's a bot hunter, whether it's a casual hunter's Beefy Pally, they do rush pretty nasty. Hunters will always be rushing everything else too, no worries. Well, hopefully we can... Okay, well, we're not. He's not throwing down anything turn 1. I'm not going to be coining into anything just yet. I could go hyper aggressive, perhaps coin into a 2-drop, but because I've got 2 Harvest Golems in hand, I'm going to save my coin for potentially dropping into one of those. That would be very nice. So I grabbed the Sylvanas. Okay, this is looking a lot better. With the Loot Hoarder down himself, I can pick his off and give him card draw. I can throw my own down, so I'm going to throw my own down. And end turn, of course, that's always good. So with my Mage power, I can ping this off. Now I could just see what we can. We could just go for a straight trade, yeah, and he's gone for the straight trade. Both of us draw a card. With 3 mana, that hunter's going to be doing something nasty, and very nice. I've drawn into a fireball. So, to your point, Beefy Pally, we do have a bit of a rush going on here. Sort of rushy card drawy cards. However, in this situation, I could start getting the table in my favour. And I can see the Harvest Golem was going to be very key for me here, because if he does decide to trade, I'm still going to have a minion left over. And if I throw another Harvest Golem down the next turn, which is a fairly solid play in itself too, I could coin into a Loatheb, I could coin into a Sylvanas, and by this stage I may well save my coin for a Sylvanas, because Sylvanas will be nasty if he has a lot of minions down. Hunter's Secret is the table, and he's gone straight for the face. This could be an Explosive Trap or similar. Explosive Trap will do 2 to all, Freezing Trap will return it back to hand. So I have time. Now, do I want to grab table control with another Golem? I can drop a minion to see if it's a snipe or similar. It's not. I'm going to expose that secret. Freezing Trap returns to hand. That's fine, because I still have a Harvest Golem on the table. So by this stage I would ideally have had more secrets in play, but you may have noted that I haven't had a Mad Scientist, I haven't had my Kirin Mage, and there have been better minions for me to drop in terms of trying to get table control. So I've been wanting to prioritise table control, and down goes the Sludge Belcher, very, very nasty. That would be an excellent minion for us to steal. So I think now is a good time for Sylvanas to come into play. So I can start tipping away at this if I so desire. I could nuke it off the table with a Fireball, or I could actually try and steal it with a Sylvanas. Now if I throw down Sylvanas, I could have a very nasty, tricksy little play next turn, where I nuked my own Sylvanas off the table. Okay, what am I going for? Well, there's no mirror imaging. If I control a secret, which I don't, I could coin in, but I can't drop a secret. If I'd managed to get down a mirror entity, that would have been excellent. So, what is the best play here? Well, I could throw down some real nasty secrets, but I think what we're going to try and do is see if we can accelerate with Sylvanas. So I'm going to pull out a Sylvanas. I know that if he attacks with this it's going to perish, so I'm going to do a 2 to that, tip it down and drop one up. There is an argument for not sacrificing this Harvest Golem as well. Eaglehorn Bow goes down, and of course when the Hunter secret is exposed that will gain durability. So he's picking things off. I am not dead, but I just need to make sure that I get the table under control now. So first things first, I can trade away. I would prefer that Sylvanas was nicking something useful. So low table will give us table control. I really want to start trading this away, get the table solidly mine. So for that reason it's a bit overkill. In comes a Fireball. I'm going to knock that off. That'll pop up one of those. We'll trade this away. Oh, a Freezing Trap. Very nicely played by our opponent there. Slowing me down, so I'm actually going to have to ping that off the table as well. Now, Freezing Trap, how could I play that better? Well, I only had one minion on the table. I did not play around that freezing at all. So this Freezing Trap Hunter doing a good job in bouncing cards back, and you can see my Sylvanas is now an 8-drop. Down goes a High Main. I actually think that, not the greatest player around secrets there by me, but I think we've lost this one as well. Lots of people trying out some interesting decks in casual. So how can I save myself? Well, I don't have any ice traps. I have not... If I had dropped the mirror entity, I could have at least dropped this, and that would have caused more problems. So I should have got my secrets out earlier, is the learning from this game. In goes a Kirin Tor. Counterspell is no good when someone is damaging you to the face. I do not have any polymorphs in this deck. There's no way of me removing those. So I'm going to try dropping a Kirin Tor. With that Kirin Tor, I'm going to throw down a mirror entity, so at least I grab another minion. And then a Aretha Arcanist will start getting buffed up, but it's probably going to be too little too late. Yep, he has lethal. Okay, that is all good and done, so no wins there. So at least we have shown you a little bit of the intro of this deck. We will play it again, and hopefully I will get you some better examples of how it can play. But 2 challenges there. We were rushed very early, and this deck does need to try and keep the deck table under control in the early game. And also, I think in that second game we probably had a bit of a misplay. We should have tried to get our secrets out a bit earlier, knowing that the Hunter would try and throw out some of those big minions in the later game. So if you're live, don't go away. We've got one more viewer challenge that we're going to take